Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Adya Juneja and this is Speed News. Let's start with all the stories making headlines today. The US military says it intercepted Iranian attacks on 3 Navy destroyers transiting the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday. According to US Central Command, Iranian missiles, drones and small boats targeted the vessels as they transited the strategic waterway. Well, the Pentagon says none of the ships were hit and US forces responded with self-defense strikes on Iranian military facilities linked to the attack. Well, Iran has denied the US version of events, accusing United States of violating a ceasefire earlier in the day by attacking ships near Iranian waters. Well, Iranian state media reported exchanges of fire in Qashm Island and explosions near Bandar Abbas and western Tehran. US President Donald Trump dismissed Iran's attacks on 3 American warships as a trifle, claiming that the US forces responded strongly during the exchange. Well, he also stated that despite the exchange of fire, he still considers the ceasefire with Tehran to be in effect and said Washington is not seeking further escalation. The International Maritime Organization has sounded the alarm, reporting that nearly 1,500 ships and around 20,000 crew members are currently trapped in the Gulf. Well, the disruption comes as a result of an Iranian blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. Lebanon says at least 12 people, including 2 children and a paramedic, were killed in Israeli airstrikes despite a ceasefire. The Lebanese state media had reported Israeli strikes across a number of southern towns and villages, and the Israeli army issued fresh evacuation warnings for 3 villages north of the Litani River. Well, the strikes follow Israel's attack a day earlier that killed a Hezbollah commander in Beirut's southern suburbs. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later said that no terrorist is immune from Israeli strikes. Well, a hospital in Gaza and Hamas say the son of senior Hamas negotiator Khalil al-Haya has died from injuries sustained in an Israeli airstrike a day earlier. Al-Shifa Hospital confirmed he succumbed to his wounds after being injured in what was described as a targeted strike. Hamas also confirmed the death. US President Donald Trump says he had a great call with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, warning the European Union to fulfill its side of a trade agreement by July 4th or face sharply higher US tariffs. But in a Truth Social post, Trump said the EU had agreed to cut tariffs to 0 under a deal reached in Scotland last year. Well, he warned tariff on European cars and trucks, which could rise from 15 to 25% if the agreement is not honored. Well, Trump also said he and von der Leyen agreed that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon. A US trade court dealt another blow to President Donald Trump's tariff strategy, ruling that his latest 10% temporary global duties are unjustified under a 1970s trade law, but blocked the levies only for 2 private importers and the state of Washington. Well, the US Court of International Trade's 2-1 decision leaves the temporary tariffs in place for all other importers while any appeal by the Trump administration plays out. Well, they are expected to expire in the month of July. Venezuelan workers and union leaders rallied in Caracas demanding free elections and calling for a democratic solution to the country's political crisis. But protesters gathered in a public square carrying signs and chanting slogans before marching to the US Embassy to deliver a petition seeking support for a transparent electoral process. A representative at the embassy received the petition at the gate. The demonstration comes amid shifting relations between Washington and Caracas, with the United States easing sanctions on Venezuela following the removal of President Nicolas Maduro earlier this year. Polls have closed across England, Scotland and Wales in local elections, marking the first major electoral test for Prime Minister Keir Starmer since Labour's 2024 landslide victory. Early opinion polls had suggested significant losses for both Labour and the Conservatives, with smaller parties such as Reform UK and the Greens expected to make gains. Well, results are expected to give an early indication of shifting voter sentiment across the UK. Australian authorities arrested 3 women with alleged links to the Islamic State group after they returned from Syria with their children. The women were among 4 Australian women and 9 children repatriated from detention camps in northeast Syria years after the collapse of ISIS's self-declared caliphate. Bolivian police have launched Plan Halcon, a sweeping anti-organized crime operation in the eastern region of Santa Cruz. Well, the move comes after a surge in contract killings which shook the nation. The operation, carried out jointly by the police and armed forces, aims to bolster public security with checkpoints across city streets and border zones notorious for high crime. Well, according to the Bolivian news agency, 600 officers have been deployed in Santa Cruz. Media reports indicate that at least 12 people have been killed by hired gunmen this year. The tipping point came on April 30th when a judge was fatally shot, a crime that the Ministry of Government and Prosecutor's Office say underscored the urgent need for action. Protesters rallied at the Tennessee State Capitol building in Nashville after lawmakers approved a new congressional map that dismantles a majority black district in Memphis. Well, the plan splits Shelby County into 3 Republican-leaning districts, threatening Democratic Representative Steve Cohen's seat. Critics, including Democrats, denounced the move as racially discriminatory, while Republicans, backed by President Donald Trump, pressed ahead. At least 5 people died as a result of a fire at a huge fairground in southeastern Mexico. The blaze broke out early on Thursday in Villahermosa in Tabasco State. It then spread while a concert attended by thousands of people was taking place. The civil protection confirmed the fire has been brought under control, though the case remains unknown. Local media and social platforms showed crowds fleeing in panic as thick black smoke filled the sky. Russia says it intercepted 20 drones headed towards Moscow within 2 hours of the start of its unilateral truce, as the capital prepares for Victory Day celebration. Russian air defense earlier reported shooting down 347 Ukrainian drones overnight across more than 20 regions, marking one of the largest drone attacks of the war. The strikes disrupted operations at Moscow's major airports, with nearly 100 flights delayed or cancelled ahead of the May 9th parade commemoration and commemorating the Soviet victory in World War II. Pope Leo XIV marks 1 year as leader of the Catholic Church with a visit to southern Italy. The first American pontiff will celebrate the anniversary of his May 8, 2025 election in Pompeii and Naples. His journey begins at the Sanctuary of the Virgin of the Rosary of Pompeii near the ruins of the ancient Roman city destroyed by volcanic eruption. The sanctuary holds the body of Bartolo Longo, a 19th century saint who rediscovered his Catholic faith after once serving as a Satanic priest. Leo will also celebrate Mass and travel by Pope Mobile through the crowd, with tens of thousands of faithful expected to attend. Al-Qaeda-linked militants attacked two villages in central Mali on Wednesday night, killing around 50 people, according to local sources. Well, the victims included members of pro-government self-defense groups as well as civilians. Panama's President Jose Raul Mulino has said that tensions with China have eased after a period of disputes involving Panamanian flagged ships being detained in Chinese ports, while the disputes had raised concerns over trade and maritime operations amid broader geopolitical competition between United States and China for influence in Panama. Both US and China have previously accused each other of trying to expand strategic control in the region, particularly around the Panama Canal. Delhi has once again topped the list of India's metropolitan cities for crimes against women, according to the National Crime Records Bureau's 2024 report. The capital registered 13,396 cases, the highest among 19 metros, with disturbing figures across multiple categories. Delhi recorded 1,058 rape cases, including 6 murders linked to rape or gang rape. Kidnapping and abduction cases stood at 3,974, while domestic violence remains severe, with 4,647 cases of cruelty by husbands or relatives. The city also led an assault with intent to disrobe, reporting 279 cases and dowry deaths with 109 incidents. Under child protection laws, Delhi reported 1,489 cases involving girl victims, again the highest among surveyed cities. Rave has filed an antitrust lawsuit against Apple over its removal from the App Store. The Canada-based software company alleges Apple kicked its video watch party app after introducing SharePlay. Rave says the removal happened in 2025 under claims of fraudulent or dishonest activity. Well, the company argues the real reason was competition with Apple's own SharePlay feature. Rave is seeking reinstallment of the App Store and hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. Apple and Meta have publicly opposed a proposed Canadian legislation known as Bill C-22, warning that it could force companies to weaken or break encryption protections in their devices and online services if it is passed. Well, the bill, which is currently being debated in Canada's House of Commons, was introduced by the country's ruling Liberal Party and is being positioned by law enforcement officials as a tool to help investigate security threats more quickly and effectively. OpenAI has introduced 3 new audio models for developers on its platform, aimed at making voice-based AI agents more conversational and capable of handling tasks in real time. The company says the new application programming interface pushes its system beyond simple transcription and text chat towards fully interactive voice agents that can listen, respond, and act during live conversations. The new models include GPT Real-Time 2, GPT Real-Time Translate, and GPT Real-Time Whisper, all of which are now available for testing in the developer playground. Asia-Pacific markets traded lower as renewed clashes between the US and Iran in the Strait of Hormuz kept investors on edge despite a fragile ceasefire. Well, US President Donald Trump warned Iran of stronger military action if a nuclear deal is not reached quickly, even as he insisted the ceasefire remains in place. Major indexes across Japan, China, Australia and South Korea declined. Wall Street also ended lower overnight, with technology and semiconductor stocks dragging US markets down from record highs. Oil prices climbed after renewed clashes between the US and Iran raised fears over disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, a key global energy route. Brent and crude rebounded more than 1% as investors worried the fragile ceasefire could collapse despite ongoing peace talks. While gold prices, on the other hand, also edged higher and remained on track for a weekly gain, supported by geopolitical uncertainty and expectations that US interest rates may stay elevated. Markets are now closely watching Iran's response to the latest US peace proposal and key American jobs data due later today. Japan has reportedly spent nearly 10 trillion yen or $64 billion to support its weakening currency after the yen fell close to 160 against the US dollar. The interventions began late last month as rising oil prices and widening interest rate gaps between the US and Japan added pressure on the yen. Currency officials declined to confirm the moves, but markets saw sharp swings that fueled speculation of repeated intervention by Tokyo authorities. Well, the issue is expected to be discussed next week during talks between US and Japan. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will also be present. Well, the David Ed Koch Theatre at Lincoln Center was transformed into a beacon of high fashion and high art for the New York City Ballet's 2026 Spring Gala. The evening, titled Set in Stone, celebrated the world premiere of a new work by Tyler Peck, accompanied by world-renowned violinist Hilary Hahn, solidifying the gala's reputation as one of the most prestigious dates on the Manhattan social calendar. Bonnie Tyler is currently in recovery after undergoing emergency intestinal surgery in Portugal, according to an official statement released on her website. Well, the 74-year-old star was admitted to the hospital near her home earlier this week. The surgery went well and she is now recuperating. Her team expressed gratitude for the outpouring of support and well wishes from family, friends and fans worldwide as she begins her road to a full and swift recovery. Shakira has officially teased her new track for the 2026 FIFA World Cup titled Die Die. Taking to social media, the Colombian superstar revealed a high-energy collaboration with Afrobeat sensation Burna Boy. Known for global hits like Waka Waka and La La La, Shakira's latest offering promises to be another rhythmic celebration of global football culture, arriving just in time to set the stage for the tournament's North American kickoff. Well, that is it in this edition. News and updates will continue on the other side. Keep watching WION World is One.